Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is the place where we explore burnout and success one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice and today we are joined by Katie Severt. She's the founder of Let's Talk Women and someone that I had to speak to, a founder of a very innovative company that I can't talk about yet, but hopefully she's a guest down the line, said that I needed to interview Katie, and I think she is a perfect match for this show. So, Katie, welcome to the Burnout Club.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. And I would love if you can give the listeners some context about who you are and what the whole group is of Let's Talk Women.
Great. Yes. Let's Talk Women is an organization and a platform. We're trying to elevate and amplify people doing great work to close the women's health gap. And I came at this position and this idea really organically, being frustrated with what I learned, during COVID and understanding the roles that women were taking and leaving because of the pandemic, because they had to take care of family, their health, all of the stats that were frontline on our computer. And I thought, we just do not talk about this stuff enough. We should talk about it some more. And, not being like super creative, I'm like, let's call it Let's Talk Women and we'll talk about it. And I was just planning on doing a few events, bringing in some experts and talking about various topics. And it just continued and continued. The more I learned and the more I saw the gaps that women face at every turn when it comes to their healthcare, and just kind of took on a life of its own. And here I am.
Yes. And we're thankful that you are here and doing this work. So why don't we talk about the ecosystem a little bit? You're based in Minnesota, and I know there's so much going on there. And I think you were already in the healthcare ecosystem of Minnesota prior to starting this. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We adopted our daughter from Korea. Now it was, goodness, she's 14. So she came home 12 years ago. And as part of that journey, we had her seen at a specialty medical clinic called the Adoption Medicine Clinic. And the woman who's the medical director called me and she said, I think they might shut us down. Can you help? And I said,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so I jumped in and we formed a board and we started hosting events and raising awareness about this exceptional clinic at the University of Minnesota. And I realized that all of my background skills, I'm actually from technology and I was a salesperson. I sold hardware and software and computers and all the things, transferred into fundraising for the Adoption Medicine Clinic. So it was my first major pivot. And I moved from tech into healthcare. So that's kind of where I got my feet in. And then I continued on different projects with different healthcare companies to raise awareness for what they were doing.
That's an amazing story. I had no idea. So what was that pivot like? I find that word comes up on a lot of episodes. Like, did you find yourself going through a range of emotions and varying levels of success, or was it quite fluid for you? And did you feel like really strong and great about the choice throughout?
Well, I was really moved to do something because it is my daughter, and we have had a really just a wonderful experience. But the more I learned and the more I knew, the more I understood that there were so many people impacted by adoption, whether they were parents of adoptees, whether they had a sister or a brother or an uncle. And the more I learned about it, the more I just got excited about it and dug into it. So a lot of the hard parts of the pivot, like the alphabet soup of all the physicians I was working with and the imposter syndrome of walking into boardrooms and presenting about adoption when I'm a technology person.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. I do not lie. It was really, really hard, but I was just driven because I knew that I could make an impact. And so, yeah, all the emotions and all the things, they all happened. It was for real. And it taught me a lot of skills of management and how to handle, that feeling when you are screaming on the inside and not on the outside. And so that was kind of the beginning of this journey into understanding women and health and connection and all the things that keep us going and keep us strong.
Thank you for sharing that. it just helps to hear other people's experiences, especially when they're not like just pie in the sky views. Like it is hard. So if you anticipate that, then at least it makes the journey a little bit easier, and knowing that if you pick a worthwhile cause, then you'll have the energy and wherewithal to get through. Now, when we're talking about Let's Talk Women, what do you consider to be your like primary goal, or like the fastest goal you think we can reach versus like your highest level goal for the group?
It's just as simple as really elevating women doing great work to close
Mhm.
the women's health gap. And there's been a lot of progress, but there's so much work to be done. There was out of the JP Morgan conference, this is an old story, but back in the probably 2018 or 19, they had more men presenting named Michael than they had women at the conference.
Yeah,
So there's
it's
18
crazy.
guys named, 20 guys named Michael and 18 women or something like, I mean, it was just
Yeah.
ridiculous. But it is so hard for women to get on stage.
Hmm.
And all they need to do is get on a stage, whether it's a podcast or in person. And then people are like, oh, I didn't know that people did that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially people that are working in research or frontline, that are heads down and are doing it
Hmm.
day in and day out. They just don't get noticed or recognized or uplifted. And I was like, I think I can do that. I can do an event.
Yeah.
I can put some women on a stage. We can talk about it. I did not realize how many amazing women there are doing great work. There are
Hmm.
great guys doing great work too, but they get noticed a lot more quickly and more easily. So I don't want to keep
Hmm.
them out of the equation, because we obviously have a really super important male strategy. But on the
Hmm.
stage, we've had, yeah, I can't even count. And we've always elevated women.
So, how can people at home either try to help or like model what you're doing to raise awareness and raise the voices of women that are doing amazing things? What would your suggestions be?
It's like so simple. Just talk about them. Like,
Yeah.
talk about what they're doing, talk to your friends, talk to your workplace. Not everybody wants to have an event and invite
Hmm.
people in and do all that, but you can go to lunch and you can talk about somebody you heard of that's doing great work. You
Hmm.
can, have conversations when you're on. I mean, people just don't talk about it enough. If you're in the press, like, mindfully think about when you're putting an article in the paper, like, are you talking to women about this, or are you just
Hmm.
kind of using the regular sources? Or, if you're any kind of communication, if you're writing a blog, like, have you considered like the women in the picture? And just always just keep women front of mind. It's just really easy to fall into old patterns, and so that's something that we can all do. And it's super
Yeah,
easy.
you're right. Yeah. And I'm glad that you keep saying the word simple, because it is easy to bring up, like, oh, I read an article, about someone, or understanding I don't have a voice or context from the women's perspective with something that I'm doing. And even for women, it's easy to kind of like fall in line with, oh, okay, I'm just going to go to a same source that I had before. So it's good that you raise both sides of it, right? To talk about it and also seek out that perspective of women. We just need to keep saying it, like like your whole point. So you are going the extra mile and actually putting on events. Can you describe that process a little bit? To me, it does seem very daunting, but perhaps there's something to be gained by taking the leap and putting on an event. Can you give some words of wisdom to people who are thinking about doing something like that?
Well, the first event that we did, Let's Talk Women, we were going to talk just about the basics of health disparities, particularly for women of color. And I found the three greatest panelists I could think of about that topic. And I thought, if we could just get 50 people in a room, that would be great. 125 people bought tickets and showed up for the event. And we
Nice.
had these amazing, amazing women on the stage. And one of the first talking points was, you aren't imagining it, but you are not getting the same care
Hmm.
as. And it's not the system. I mean, this is coming from a physician. It's the system. It's not you. It's not your physician. It's the system was not set up to care for us.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just feel the hair on the back of everybody's neck just standing up just to like admit it and talk about it and hear it.
Yeah.
And like at that point, I was like, I'm onto something here, because that just doesn't come through on a Zoom call. And, having the time for the people at the table to talk to each other, during the breaks and so on, and just the way that the room lit up, I knew at that time that I was going to have to keep going.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great outcome. Now, you've done several of these, and maybe even more than I realized, but can you talk a little bit about some of your favorite speakers or presenters, in the spirit of let's talk about the women. So let's highlight a few that you really find interesting or want to share.
There's so many. We've done 12 panels, several corporate events, and just tons and tons of book events. But I cannot not talk about our moderator, Shonda Smith Baker. She has led us through so many different topics with such expertise and such a human and relatable touch. And she connects with the audience so well that I really attribute like 99% of the success to her. And we have covered topics from heart disease for women. Like, we don't know it, but heart disease is the number one killer of women. And the reason it is because our hearts have never really been studied the same way. Mm-hmm. And people are hearing this and they're like, what? I need to go to a cardiologist? What? My husband has a cardiologist, but I don't. Mm-hmm. We've covered aging and caregiving for adults. We've covered mental health and addiction and the midlife crunch. One of my favorite panelists for that one was Casey Fleming, and I know she's been on your podcast. Just really like talking about why that time in life is so challenging. We've had maternal health was incredible. I actually was at JP Morgan, and I heard this woman talking about maternal health just so passionately, and I thought, I ran over and started talking to her, and I said, well, we're doing a maternal health panel, and we're bringing in Dr. Rachel Hardiman, and she's a really well-known researcher at the University of Minnesota talking about health disparities for women and maternal health. And she was like, I want to be on that panel. And I was like, that would be great. Let's take a selfie. Nobody in Minnesota knows who you are. Yeah. And then she gave me her card, and it was the Surgeon General of California. And
that's great.
And so she came into my event, and she flew in, and she was lovely. And she talked about how the symptoms you have and the things that happen to your body when you're pregnant are a window into your menopause journey and your aging journey. So if you have heart issues when you're pregnant, you need to talk to your cardiologist when you are in middle age, because you probably are going to have those issues as you age. That just like led us right into the next topic, which is perimenopause and menopause, and like having that through line and those stories that connect all the panels together, I think is what keeps people coming in the door.
Yeah. That's such a great lineup. What do you have in store for 2026? So it either, conceptually or anything planned, what topics do you think need to be talked about next?
We are going to talk more about life sciences innovation. There has been a lot of focus now on midlife women's health, menopause journey. That's caught really a lot of national attention. And so we are going to flip back into the innovation side of things, what companies are getting funded and why, how they are getting funded, how women can invest in those companies. Like, what is this whole venture capital world and why does it matter? We're also going to talk about perimenopause, which is the earlier stage of your journey with hormones, and that is starting to percolate up nationally. And then we just watch the trends and we look at what's coming up, what people are interested in, where the buzz is, and we try to cover those at the front end of the curve so people get the information before it starts coming out on their news cycle.
Okay, so people nationally can really plug in to you and follow on with the information that you're providing.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Hmm.
Okay. Because it seems like a great resource. Like I think you're hitting on all of the topics that people really want to know about, and sometimes you just don't have the time to research, and there's so much conflicting information, or you end up going down rabbit holes. It's so nice, and I think welcomed to have concise information that you can trust. That's the big thing for me right now.
Yeah, that is for sure. And Instagram and the rabbit holes and all the algorithms and the information that it's getting put out there is great for raising awareness, but women are confused. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to trust. So we always make sure that the people that we present and we bring forward are coming with the expertise, the knowledge, the science backed information that women need so that they can trust what we're saying, what we're talking about. So
Yes. Yeah. That's the underlying, that's the backbone of talking, right? Like let's make sure that we trust it and we can rely on it. Now, let's think about everything that you've already accomplished, right? If you had to think back either, at the beginning of this process or even when you were younger, what would you say to yourself or tweak or change?
well, part of this whole thing is really rooted in thinking about my younger self and what I would have told myself and paying it backwards because I always just said, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm
Mhm.
fine. And I really wasn't fine. And I want people who are coming up to know that it's okay not to be fine, that we
Mhm.
can talk about this stuff and be authentic and really be our real selves and stop pretending like everything is okay when it
Mhm.
isn't. Or if we're overwhelmed, or if we're in a position where it doesn't seem to really fit, instead of just like pushing through it and trying to keep going when you know in your heart that it's not right, just
Mhm.
listen. I wish I would have listened to myself more and trusted myself more and talked about things more openly. So I come from a Scandinavian tradition. I am in Minnesota, and we don't talk about things a lot.
Mhm.
And I wish I would have talked more.
Yeah. That's a good point, right? It's not just the medical side of things, it's really cultural. And if you don't hear those conversations happening and you're not used to them happening, it's very difficult to be the one to start the conversation, and especially when you're bringing it up about yourself, so that's I would say the same thing, right? The phrase "I'm fine" that you tell yourself and other people is so dangerous. Like, I can't even count how many times I've said "I'm fine" to myself, knowing good and well not fine. You should seek medical attention. This is not normal. And then, yeah, okay, you're surviving. You're there the next day, so you don't do anything about it. But it's just even geographically, in the Northeast, I think we're still saying the same thing. Maybe we vocalize more than other parts of the country on other things, but we're still plagued by the "I'm fine" whole mentality. How was it changing that narrative, like for yourself and for the people in your community?
That's one of my favorite things about running this organization is the stories that people come back to me with. I've had women call me up and say, I went to the physician for my checkup and I was like feeling, XYZ and I was dismissed. They told me to go buy a new pair of shoes or recommended an
Mm.
antidepressant and I just didn't feel right. And I advocated for myself and I talked to the doctor and I said, that's not right. I don't think that works or that's not the solution. And I went to a different doctor and that physician listened to me and I had a vitamin D deficiency or I had,
Mm.
some of
Yeah.
these very normal things that women face and that are
Mhm.
often not caught in that 15-minute appointment. And again, I'm not like
Yeah.
the physicians are doing the best they can, but the women have a piece in it too. And we have to really advocate for ourselves and advocate for our own health. And if it doesn't feel right,
Mhm.
there's a lot of options out there. Go find a different physician or go to a different caregiver or try a nurse practitioner or go to a different practice or do some telehealth and just really
Yeah.
explore your options until you find somebody that fits and that can hear your story and that can help you navigate your physical and mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. The persistence and being an advocate for yourself is huge. That's a cultural shift that we definitely need to work on. What do you think is the best way to try to instill that in the girls and young women growing up now? Because I think we're really trying to take it on and change how we were raised in that, we're not necessarily like thinking, oh, yep, no, I'm going to advocate immediately. And this is, second nature to me. You know, do you think about that at all or have any advice?
Yeah, I always try to keep conversations going with all different ages and stages of life and just to be checking in with all the different groups of people that I rely on to keep us on track for our conversations that we're having. The younger generation of women is actually ahead of us as far as advocating
Mhm.
for themselves. I mean, I have seen 30-year-old women walk into a boardroom and tell a CEO what to do with his company, where at that stage of my life, I could barely like walk into a room by myself. I mean, it's
Mhm.
incredible the confidence and the ability they have to speak up. And
Yeah.
I think part of it is that I'm 55. So we've really only been in the workforce full scale for maybe 50 years. And so a
Mhm.
lot of women that are exiting now, like they are the first group of women that have navigated career, family, community, all the things, health. And so they really broke the doors down, and the women coming up behind, it's a lot easier. So I mean, not easier, but it's different, and they're more willing to advocate for themselves, and you see that all across the different generations of women.
It's such a good point. I lose sight of that sometimes and that it's still new. It's still new. And, the people who were just breaking into the workforce are either still there or just exiting. So, I think that gives me some hope. What would you say gives you the most hope about the goals that you have?
When you're the one and only in the room, and so I used to work in tech, so it was
Mhm.
very male dominated. And when you're the one and only in the room and another woman would come in, you know, you, we were kind of trained to compete with each other because that's my spot. And you are going to take that light away from me. And I feel like that completely has shifted now with women really supporting each other so much more and finding that they can work together and that gives them, exponentially more power to elevate each other. And that gives me so much hope because I think a lot of that came out, through the generations, but particularly through the COVID pandemic when it was so obvious that the women were dropping out of the workforce to do the caregiving, the women were doing the frontline work, it just impacted women so much that coming out of that, it's almost like this collective, like, oh wow, like we're really carrying so much of the burden, both
Mhm.
at home and at work, that we should just really help each other. We should talk about it. Why not? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what about on the personal side? So this mission is amazing, and it seems like it's actually feeding your spirit probably because you're getting those conversations out there and people are receiving the information. But it's also it has to be challenging as well. How do you revitalize yourself? Like, what do you do to actually have fun and feel, rested and restored?
Well, I do all the things. I love to go running. If I go running and I don't listen to music and I don't run in a running club, I run by myself and I just
Mhm.
let everything just go quiet. And that's really when I have my best ideas, when I just let myself settle into, the rhythm of running. I also really like to do yoga just for the, breathing and all the things that brings into a little bit of quiet because things do get pretty frenetic.
Yeah.
And I have learned that if I run at that speed all the time, you're not going to have your best outcomes. And so by just taking a breath or taking a moment and settling into quiet, that has really been a game changer for me.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like I need silence sometimes. And it's very hard to get it if you're not intentional. So it's a good reminder for me to try to have some time for that today. And did you learn that or did you know that those were great, strategies and outlets for you prior to starting Let's Talk Women, or was it born out of this project?
Yoga is a strategy that I go back to. When I first started doing it 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I walked into this class. I was nervous. It was like all these people I didn't know, this thing that I had never done before. Everybody seemed to be like a yogi and I walked in, I felt terrible. I was like crying. I had bad morning,
Oh,
all the things. And I just committed to it. I'm like, I'm just going to try this and see what happens. And I walked out of the class and I was like, wow, it is such a beautiful day. The sun is out. Oh, I feel so good. And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, it was that obvious to me at that moment.
wow.
I'm like, that like changed my whole perspective, my feeling inside and outside of my body just by taking that 1 hour to, shut down everything that I was thinking about and my chattering mind. And so that's been something that I go back to whenever I am feeling that way that I was feeling that morning. I'm like, I think I just need to go to yoga. I can do it myself in my living room, but like going to a class and being part of a community and being in a group and being led by an instructor is what I need. Some of those moments of stress, let's say.
That's a great reminder, the community aspect of it, just to be doing something. Even if you're not really interacting with other people, I think being in that environment is a whole different energy, and it kind of like forces your mood and focus to shift. So I don't do that as much as I should, but I do benefit from it. So another thing
Yeah,
for me to do. Like I definitely have
I
to change that.
agree. And just to go back to my friend Casey, like put it on your calendar. If I put it on my calendar, I'll do it.
Hmm.
Take time to put yourself on your calendar and remember that if we're not healthy, all the people in our sphere that we care for or lean on, we're not
Hmm.
going to be as there for them as we would be if we were feeling strong and resilient.
That's so true. And for the listeners, I always ask the guests to tell me a fun fact about them, mostly just so I can get a feel for their personality. If I don't know it already, but yours sparked something in my mind because you were talking about parking karma and how like you always get spots and it doesn't matter the conditions. And it just made me think like, oh, like maybe I should just go through the exercise of trying to see like what luck do I have? Like I'm sure I have luck in some area I can actually think and just be grateful for. So it made me pause and focus on something positive, like actually searching for the positive. So that was huge. And my brain needed that at the moment. But I think it's just so funny, like your parking karma. So if you could just talk about that for a minute, it's just a nice distraction. It's so funny.
Well, I was actually in an MBA. I was getting my MBA and they did the icebreaker and it was right after the holidays and I had gone to Target on Christmas Eve because I had forgotten something and the whole lot was just crawling, of course. And I
Yeah.
just was in a hurry. And so I just pulled up right to the front. And right when I got to the front, a car was pulling out and I parked right in the front at Target on the day before Christmas. And so I laughed and I went into this class and they said, well, what's your superpower? And I said, well, it's parking karma, of course. And the funny thing about it is like, once I started noticing it, like if you notice the positive, like I was like, oh, here
Hmm.
we are in the front row again. This is great. This is great. Like you never notice when you have to park in the back. You only notice when you park in the front. And the more you
Yeah.
notice it, you're like, oh, I really do have parking karma. And and so it's just kind of like really focusing and noticing when things go well. It
Hmm.
shifts your mindset and so now I don't know, now it just happens.
It is your destiny to have good parking karma.
I mean, it's not the greatest superpower, but when you're busy, it's kind of nice.
That's pretty clutch, if you ask me. Because when you wrote about being in Costco around Thanksgiving and getting a front row spot, I will not go to stores if I think the parking is going to be a mess. I just will avoid the store altogether. I won't even take a chance. So that is a very good superpower to have. Oh, that's great. Now, now that I've already taken us on this departure way, way far from Let's Talk Women, I just want to go back for a moment and just ask, oh, you know what? I didn't even get to your challenge. You had a very interesting challenge. Sometimes people forget what they write to me, but I loved what you said. Find a woman over 80 and ask her what she is most proud of and ask her about her dreams for young women. So I'm searching for a plus 80 individual or 80 plus individual. My mother's 79, so I figured I'd start with her. But is this something that was rooted in an exercise that you did? If so, can you tell us about it?
It was rooted in a comment that a friend of mine made here, Sarah Edwards. She gave us the challenge and I took it. She was talking about one of her business partners who is starting her 5th company in her 80s.
Wow.
And Sarah asked her, well, why? And she said, well, why wouldn't I? And it just started to spark that realization in my own mind that oftentimes I don't ask other women, especially women over 80, like, what have you done? Like, who are you? Like, I see you. I want to talk to you. There's so much wisdom to be imparted and learned and a shortcut to be made. Like, so we don't have to repeat the same things over and over. We can actually rely on other women to guide us. And the conversations that I've had, just like mindfully seeking out people to talk to, even like at a party or a fundraiser and just asking like that very simple question has opened up so much wisdom and so much friendship, to be honest. I just hosted a dance party with a friend of mine, and don't tell anybody, but she just had a big birthday and it might be the number that I mentioned. And she said, I just want to get women together and have fun. And I'm like, that is such a great idea. I'm all in. And so we had a multi-generational dance party.
I love that idea.
Because she had the
dancing
idea.
is great.
And I asked her, I said, what should we do? And she said, let's have a dance party. And I was like, okay. And if I wouldn't have asked her, that never would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think if you were doing a party, you'd be like, we should definitely do this for her. Asking the question is huge.
Ladies with the walkers.
Yeah. I love that. And it reminds me when I was trying to take my mother on a vacation, it's like, she always wanted to go see the Northern Lights, and we finally got to go earlier this year. And I expected the demographics of the group to be younger than me, like in their 30s and super active. And really, they were closer to her age, some a little younger, but several of them older than her that just were kind of dedicated to traveling in their older years and seeing the world and just, seeking out community wherever they find it. And I love sitting at the table at lunch and at dinner and just hearing the stories and talking. It really sparked that appreciation that I did not have going into it. Like family members, sure, like you expect them to have great stories and teachings, but perfect strangers. It was awesome. So I love this challenge. I think it's really critical for people to connect with the older generations in a different way. So, you win for, challenge. It's simple and it's really impactful. Just now I'll go back to Let's Talk Women. What do you want the listeners to think about after they listen to this episode? What do you want them to be thinking about?
I just want people to elevate and amplify women that are changing the world for our daughters and for our sisters, and just really consider like the health journey and the caregiving journey that women go through and what a heavy burden it can be, and how we can help lighten the load by just realizing it and accepting it and seeing it and leaning in and helping each other and talking about it to our male counterparts and partners. And it's not okay. Like, we're not fine. We need to work together in community. And and stop dumping so much of the burden on women that carry the load and then end up living longer, but in poor
Hmm.
health. The statistics of women living 25% longer, but in poor health for many of
Yeah.
those years. What we want to be like the old ladies at the stargazing and, enjoy our years. And how can we set each other up to do that? So just keep it front of mind. Just talk about it. To me, it's
Yeah.
so simple. We can just continue the conversation and talk about it and be honest about it and not try to present ourselves as perfect, but just,
Hmm.
as the flawed and amazing human beings that we are. That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
That's kind of long, sorry.
No, that's perfect. And I actually like the wording that you're using, and the stats really help because we do live longer, right? So how are we preparing ourselves to be and show up that, those last couple decades there? Like we can really be setting ourselves up to succeed and we're potentially not. So being goal oriented like that, it helps me, frame it for myself. Yeah. And you also have a summit coming up, right?
Yeah, I'm super thrilled to finally do a full day event around midlife. And we are tying together a lot of pieces of it, including just like really basic education for women to understand the journey from perimenopause to menopause and beyond, what kind of care you should look for, who you should see, what your options are. I'm super excited to invite Dr. Sharon Malone to our stage, she's written a book, Grown Woman Talk, with just really, really basic and information about how we can advocate for ourselves and our healthcare. And we are also going to talk about stress, workplace stress, how we can change how we support women in middle age through new innovations at the workplace, whether it's through insurance, etc. But it's going to be a full day. People have been asking for it. It's a big commitment, but we're
Yeah.
on the way, and I'm super thrilled for it on November 6th.
All right. So everyone take a check on the website. Try to go if you can. And is it only in person or can you also stream it live?
We are doing it in person, but we are doing a podcast with Dr.
Oh, no.
Somi for part of it. And
Mhm.
so we will record the whole thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be live, but
Mhm.
we will have options. But if it's a beautiful time to be in Minnesota, the fall colors. And so if you can join us, come on down.
All right. Well, I will let you know if I can make it because that
Oh, it'd
sounds
be
really
great to
good.
have you.
I've heard fantastic things about your event, so it's not just a plug from me. It's a plug from people who have actually attended.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you. I appreciate that.
and well, thank you for being on the podcast, Katie. This is really fantastic. You've given me a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. So I will be doing
There
that
we go.
going forward.
Well, I feel like I just walked out of a yoga class. This was really fun. I feel your energy even through the Zoom screen. So thanks so much for the opportunity.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Well, on that great note, listeners, have a wonderful day. And remember to subscribe and like and review and check out Let's Talk Women. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.